Our story today is a shocking true crime story with one of the craziest twists we've ever seen. What makes the story of the vanishing killer truly sad is the fact that there was no way any of the victims could tell what was coming. So come along with us as we cover a bone-chilling story so terrible that it will make you have second thoughts about any stranger you see in public. Welcome to YARO Crime. Today, we'll be taking a look at the story of the vanishing killer. Before we continue, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on our latest videos. Now come along with us as we reveal the chilling true crime story of the vanishing killer. On June 19, 2017, the police visited a farmhouse property in Idaho to conduct a welfare check on the new occupants of the property. This property was occupied by a 60-year-old man, his 47-year-old girlfriend, and her teenage daughter. They had just moved into the home, but strangely, no one had seen or heard from them for a couple of days. It quickly became obvious that something was not right. When the first officer got to the farmhouse, he was hit with a strong smell. The officer recognized the smell as the smell of something rotting, and he noticed that the odor seemed to come from a shed near the house. Rallying for backup, the officer began to make his way to the shed to investigate. As he got closer to the shed, the smell became stronger and the number of flies swarming around him also increased a lot. When he finally opened the door to the shed, he saw a blue tarp covering something or someone on the floor of the shed. Upon pulling back the tarp, he was confronted with a gruesome sight of 3 bodies laying side by side. The injuries on the bodies showed that they had been brutally killed and left to rot in the shed. Even though the decomposition process made it hard to identify the bodies, it isn't hard for friends and family alike to assume that the bodies were of the owner Mike, his girlfriend Nadja, and her daughter Peyton. However, once the authorities were able to identify the bodies, they were confronted with a shocking discovery. They discovered that while 2 of the bodies did indeed belong to the trio who lived on the Idaho farmstead property, 1 of the bodies did not. This left everyone with questions as they tried to figure out both who the mysterious stranger that ended up dead on someone else's property was and the location of the 3rd occupant of the residence. But to get answers to these questions, we'll need to go back to where it all started. Nadja and her daughter Peyton shared a very close bond with each other. But after losing her husband in 2014, Nadja sometimes had trouble making ends meet. Sadly, Nadja also lost a child around the same time. This brought Nadja and Peyton even closer as they only had each other, but this would soon change. Nadja worked as a massage therapist in Ogden, Utah, and after everything she had been through, she wasn't particularly in a hurry to find love again. But love is unpredictable, as Nadja would soon find out. In 2015, a charming man who went by the name Mike walked into Nadja's work in need of a massage, and there was an instant, almost uncontrollable spark between the two, which led to the beginning of a relationship. Mike worked as a private pilot for clients who needed to fly across the country at any time. He was well-to-do and just happened to be a divorcee of 10 years. Nadja and Mike seemed perfect for each other, and their relationship quickly became more serious as months passed. As the relationship grew older, Mike continued to demonstrate his commitment to Nadja and their relationship. He would take her on dates and go on hikes with her and Peyton. He also had a good relationship with Peyton and constantly made her a priority in his life. He would pick her up from school, take her on lunch dates, and teach her how to shoot. Soon enough, the bond between them grew strong enough that Peyton began calling him Dad. Nadja's friends also noticed the positive effect being with Mike seemed to have on her. It said that he was the first reason she smiled in a long time, and that she always had a happy glow when they were together. Everyone who knew about Nadja and Mike's relationship could see that it was flourishing, and Nadja's loved ones followed her relationship through social media. Nadja's social media page was filled with sweet posts about her boyfriend and how thoughtful and amazing he was to her and her daughter. But trouble soon began to brew in what seemed like paradise. According to Nadja's best friend, this issue began to brew as the relationship grew older. Apparently, Nadja had asked her boyfriend a couple of times for help paying the mortgage, which he firmly refused, saying they were moving too fast, and he couldn't do this. This baffled Nadja, as she couldn't understand why he did not want to help the man financially, even though he made $10,000 in a single month. This became an issue that led to a brief separation. However, their love quickly pulled them back to one another. Mike soon purchased a ranch in Caldwell, Idaho, and told Nadja that he simply couldn't let her think he wasn't ready for commitment. He asked her and Peyton to move in with him, promising them whatever they wanted. Nadja and Peyton were excited to start their new lives together with Mike, and Nadja's updates on social media captured her growing excitement as their plans to move progressed. It seemed that Mike and Nadja had found true love and were ready to spend the rest of their lives together. Sadly, it turned out to be too good to be true. In June 2017, Nadja needed to make a trip back to Utah to pick up some of the horses Mike bought for the ranch. Mike was away at work at the time and couldn't make the pickup himself. Nadja was supposed to arrive on the weekend of June 9th to pick up the horses, but she never showed up. The workers who were expecting her to pick up the horses decided to call her and check in, but she never answered the phone or replied to any of the calls. The friends and family of Nadja and Peyton also began to notice that they hadn't heard from Peyton since she sent them a text message on June 6th. This was strange, as Peyton was always on her phone. What was also strange was the fact that no one could contact Mike as well. Worried, Peyton's friend Sydney convinced her mother to investigate what was going on. They called 911 and had someone dispatched to the farmstead. Mike's relatives also called to request a welfare check, and this brings us back to where our story began, with Officer discovering 3 decomposing bodies in a shed. The investigators were able to identify the mysterious third body using dental records. The body belonged to a woman named Cheryl Baker. Although Cheryl was a local of Ogden, Utah, she had no connection to Nadja and Peyton while she had been alive. This made the investigators wonder why her body was found in the shed alongside Nadja and Peyton. It turns out that Mike was the thread that connected all 3 individuals together. Investigators soon discovered that Mike's real name was Gerald Michael Bullinger, and that he had been married to Cheryl Baker for 7 years up until her sudden death. Gerald had been living a double life the entire time, and since Nadja and Peyton's home in Ogden, Utah, was just 8 miles away from where Mike lived with Cheryl, he could easily move back and forth between his 2 partners. It was also discovered that Gerald could not get proper funding to buy the ranch in Idaho, and instead got Cheryl to purchase the property for him, telling her that it would be their retirement home. Cheryl loved crafting and art and planned to convert the shed on the farmstead into her very own art studio. She and Gerald agreed that she would remain behind in Utah to sell off the house, while he would live in a trailer on the property in Idaho and fix it up for them. Cheryl worked in a school for the deaf and blind and had just retired on June 6th. Now that she had some free time, she decided to make the 5-hour drive to Idaho to pleasantly surprise her husband with an impromptu visit. We can only imagine how surprised she was when she got to her property and saw a fully functioning home with a car in the driveway and animals running around. She would also have noticed that a substantial amount of work was being done on the property. She may probably have assumed that Gerald had started some work on the property without telling her. She may have hopped out of the car and walked up to the front door to see who was in the house. No one can say for certain what happened when the 2 women met each other. What we can say is that Gerald soon discovered that his ruse was up. Police assumed that after making this discovery, Gerald became violent as his plans came crashing down in an instant. It is alleged that he took out his anger not only on Cheryl but also on Nadja and Jem Peyton. The 3 bodies on the property were indeed those of Cheryl, Nadja, and Peyton. Upon analysis, it became clear that they had all 3 been shot in the head execution style and their bodies abandoned in the shed on the property. Some animals, presumably family pets, were also found dead on the property, including some birds and 3 dogs. These animals were also shot execution style, just like the human victims. The only person who knows the specifics of what happened on that property is Gerald himself. Gerald, however, is nowhere to be found. During the course of the investigation, it was discovered that Gerald was once married in the 70s to a woman named Jackie Garcia, whom he had met when they were both freshmen at what is now Brigham Young University, Idaho. Jackie said she got a bad feeling about her groom and knew it was a mistake as soon as she got home from her honeymoon. Jackie and Gerald were married for 10 years, and during this time, Gerald showed Jackie the full extent of his deceptive nature. He was also verbally and physically abusive to her. In her words, you could catch him red-handed, God could be pointing at him, and he'd still lie all over the place. Jackie tried to reach out to the church and family members for help, but Gerald was so good at acting nice and friendly on the outside that everyone found it hard to believe her story. Their marriage came to an end in 1988 after years of infidelity on Gerald's part. Gerald got married again to a second woman, who he also divorced to be with a mistress. That mistress would have been Cheryl Baker, his third wife, but because all who knew her attest to how pure-hearted and genuine Cheryl was, there's a pretty good chance she didn't know she was the other woman in the first place. There have been many theories proposed to understand Gerald's plan. These theories range from cashing in on the sale of the Utah property to establishing the perfect polygamous home. However, these are all speculations. No one also knows about Gerald's whereabouts, and some believe that he may even be dead. What we do know, however, is that Gerald has seemingly vanished off the face of the earth. Peyton also had a YouTube channel, and watching her videos really shows how evil anyone would be to cut such a life short. Gerald Michael Bullinger is the only person of interest in the murder of Nadja, Cheryl, and Peyton, and needs to be located, dead or alive, as soon as possible. So be on the lookout for a Caucasian male in his 60s who is around 6 foot 1 inches and weighs approximately 240 pounds. From the last sighting of Gerald, he was described as having grey hair and brown eyes. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families and friends of Cheryl, Nadja, and Peyton, and we can only hope that what truly happened on that farmstead comes to light, and that the vanishing killer responsible for their deaths pays answers for the crimes committed. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think about this chilling case in the comments, and please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.